Okay, great. Thank you.
Okay. It is 1 o'clock, so we will get started. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Diane Porterfield from the Connect and Communicate Series Planning Committee. Thank you for joining us for this discussion on academic libraries and autism spectrum disorder. This discussion will be recorded and it will be made available to Pennsylvania Library Association College and Research Division members through the Pennsylvania Library Association website and also through the CRD blog. If you're interested in becoming a Pennsylvania Library Association member, feel free to contact any member of the CRD team. I will be saying who those are shortly. For this discussion, you will only need a headset or speakers. We encourage you to ask questions in the chat box at the bottom right throughout the discussion, and we'll attempt to include your discussions or your questions as appropriate, or at the end of the session, we will get to them. We will also do our best to assist participants with technical issues. Please put those in the chat box as well. Academic Libraries and Autism Spectrum Disorder is brought to you by the Pennsylvania Library Association College and Research Division's Connect and Communicate series. I'd like to thank the CRD board for supporting the Connect and Communicate initiative and the other Connect and Communicate Planning Committee members. Sarah Pike, who is also doing our closed captioning today, Aaron Burns, Amy Snyder, Amanda Avery, Ryan Sittler, and Ronali Sioko. And I'd like to acknowledge Pennsylvania Library Association for allowing us to bring this discussion to you through Zoom. Thank you, Sarah, for doing the closed captioning today. We will be keeping track of attendance, so please type in the number of attendees at your location if there is more than one of you watching. And finally, I'd like to thank and introduce our panelists for today's event, Gerry, Shea, and Sebastian, Derry. Hi, guys.
Hi.
Hi, how are you?
Thanks for inviting us to speak with you this afternoon.
Yes, thanks for your interest.
Okay, take it away.
Oh, we're good. Okay, very good. All right, so I'll introduce myself. I'm Gerry Shea. I'm a communication librarian at Seton Hall University. I've been here for about 3 years. The reason I've come to this topic is I was actually a special education teacher for a few years before I became a librarian. I taught students with autism in a self-contained class, and also did respite, which was working with people with autism, take them out into community socialization, social skills. I did that for many, many years, about 15 years. So that's what brings me to the topic. Really interested in helping students with disabilities in general, but especially with autism spectrum disorder, to succeed in college. And there's more, as the demographics are changing, there's more students like that coming to university. So I think it's something that is topical as well. So that's why I come to it.
And hi, everybody. I'm Sebastian Derry. I'm the Assistant Dean for Public Services here at Seton Hall University Libraries. And shortly after I arrived here, my son, who's 6 now, got a diagnosis of autism. And so that started me on a particular path as a parent. And then when Gerry came on board here, we just touched base and found a shared interest and realized there was an area to explore research-wise and just in terms of awareness about autism, and specifically in the academic library environment and higher education. We thought this was coming kind of a wave that was on its way. So it's been very helpful for me personally to kind of, research, think about where diagnosis and treatment are going, and just even for me, my son, how he might be managing if and when he goes to schooling past high school. So we're both very passionate about this topic, and hopefully that will come through in what we share with you.
All right, and here's just an overview of what we're going to cover today. So we'll define what it is. We'll go into some of the characteristics. We'll talk about New Jersey, since we're in New Jersey, and national numbers. And then we'll give a lit review, talk about the context of legislation, which is important. Then impact on libraries, and then some recommendations for what you can do in your libraries, and then a discussion if you'd like that. And also we're going to have a couple polling questions as well during the course of the presentation.
And just 3, so
not too many, not too much homework. All right, so let's get to the next one. And this is poll question 1. So I was joking that I might not be able to do this, but let's see if I can. Okay, so here we go. And I'm going to launch the poll. So a simple question: does your library provide services for students with disabilities just in general? So we're going to launch that. If you could quickly answer that, and we'll take a look. And we'll give you like a very short time.
Yeah.
A minute or 2. Looks like it looks like a good majority does.
I'm going to answer the poll too.
Okay, very good. Oh, I'm going to do it too. All right, so we'll give it a couple more minutes. It looks like everyone's pretty much. So 75% plus 76%. That's pretty good. 76%.
Okay.
I'm seeing it. So that's great. Yeah. All right, cool. I think everyone's answered. So let's move on.
Sure. I might just say in our library where we do our disability services are visibly two computer workstations that are set up with software and specific adaptive keyboards and mice. And they're marked as accessibility workstations, and they're available for any student who needs to use particular software. We find they don't get a lot of use, but they are there, and we make sure the software is maintained and updated and coordinate with our campus disability services office to make sure that we have the software there that they need, because they sometimes will bring in prospective students to the library to do testing, sometimes in the summer. Hasn't happened that often, maybe once or twice a year, but we do have those available.
All right, very good. I think everyone's answered. 19 of 22, that sounds about right. So 86%, that's good. Oh, someone else did. And I'm gonna end the polling now. So 75%, that's a pretty good number. And we'll move on to the, I'll close that up for a second and come back to it. And we have one more question, come back to a bit later, but now we'll just get into the, for some reason, hold on one second, it's stuck. Give me 1 second. Oh, where's that? Maybe I have to, share, maybe go back to share. No, sorry, folks. Technical difficulties.
Yeah, no problem.
Yeah.
Go to stream here.
Okay, and then share.
Jerry, I think there's just a little X box that you can just click on in the poll to get it to go off your screen.
Oh, okay. Very good. Okay, let me go to Xbox. Okay. Where's that? Sorry, folks. I apologize for my lack of technical ability here. I think we're good.
Yeah.
No, we're good. We're good. Thank you. Sorry about that, folks. I apologize. All right. So now we'll talk about what autism spectrum disorder is. So obviously it's a spectrum. I think a good way to think about it is that it manifests itself differently with everybody else. It's not linear. So some people may have really strong language skills, but they may have really problems with sensory overload. So they may, in certain situations, they'll be very, talkative, outgoing, and able to kind of have a conversation with you. But if they're in a certain situation where they're not comfortable, there's like a lot of stimulation, they may, not be able to kind of access those kind of language skills that they do have. So it is a spectrum. It does, but it's not linear. So it does, and everyone is different. It's like a snowflake. It manifests itself differently with every person.
Right. So yeah, it's hard to kind of make generalizations about it. But yeah, it's thinking of it instead of a linear scale. We recently came across a little cartoon for kids that talked about sort of a colorful circle being the spectrum, and that, as Gerry said, you might have a deficit maybe in social skills. Maybe that's something that you don't have any interest in socializing with people, but you might be strong with imaginative talk and imaginative playing, for example. And then the Diagnostic Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders is sort of a guiding resource for diagnoses. The latest update from DSM-5 was published in 2013, and it highlights autism spectrum disorder, or ASD, as persistent deficits in social communication and interaction, along with restricted and repetitive patterns of behavior. So again, those can manifest themselves differently, and I think it's sometimes it's a little bit more visible in children and younger people. I think oftentimes if there's been an intervention or treatment for kids, that by the time they are through high school, maybe at the college level, oftentimes those repetitive patterns may be managed a little bit more. They may not be quite as visible.
And also, so essentially they're camouflaging to a certain degree, the symptoms,
Right, and they also, in the DSM-5, they also consolidated some categories, which is a little bit of a difference. Won't go into the details, but they also include now a severity assessment scale, levels 1 through 3, based on how much support someone needs for daily function. They added additional assessments in there, and they also created a new diagnosis of social communication disorder for disabilities in social communication without repetitive restricted behaviors. So just in this presentation, we're using it as a the DSM definition as a baseline. And again, it's the method used by most pediatricians to arrive at a diagnosis, but not everyone is in agreement about these changes that have been made in DSM. Temple Grandin, who's quite well known as an author and an educator who's autistic herself on the spectrum, she's just written that an autism diagnosis is not like a diagnosis for tuberculosis, it's a behavioral profile. So over the years, doctors keep revising and changing labels and meanings, so do not get hung up on labels.
Yeah, it's not precise at all in terms of that. So here's some more of the characteristics. We don't have to go through all of them. I think we kind of covered a lot of them. And a lot of these, as Sebastian said, will manifest more when, as children, and as they get older, they'll start to do therapy. Oftentimes people today, they'll be able to sort of camouflage or some of the symptoms to a degree. There's some more of them. So yeah.
And the social, one of the things worth emphasizing is the social deficits are really the biggest challenges for ASD students, and even for college students in general, and just people in general. Social interactions can be sometimes challenging. But that social part for everyone is really important. That sense of belonging and community really helps with academic success, as we've seen. And so ASD students sometimes face really huge challenges when it comes to their social skills.
Yeah, and that's really the biggest, like Sebastian said, that's kind of the biggest threat to them succeeding as students, the fact that they don't get as socially integrated as maybe other students do. So that really, if you're reaching out to them, just being kind and taking interest, that's the kind of stuff that would really help students with ASD, because the social part is really difficult, and that's really puts them at the most risk at higher education. They have the academic skills at our level to succeed in college, but oftentimes they don't have the social skills and sometimes like time management skills, the softer skills, but they have the academic skills to succeed. So that, it's sometimes just making a connection can really help students with ASD, at college. That's the case for any person, but really more so for students with ASD.
Yeah, and just to emphasize that those characteristics really are, there's some common aspects, but they're by no means a comprehensive list. So there may be others that could be included, but we just wanted to give folks just a general overview.
Yeah, and here's the prevalence. As you see, this is really shooting up in the last 10 or 15 years. In New Jersey, it's the highest in this country, I believe. I think it's 1 in 38 now.
Yes.
And then in the country, it's 1 in 59. These numbers come from information from 2008, I believe. So
2018.
2018, I'm sorry, yes. And so a lot of these students will be coming to us down the road, but it was 8-year-old students, right? 8-year-olds that the prevalence is based on.
Right. So these are 2008. These were released in 2018, and they reflected data gathering on a cohort in 2014.
Yeah, 2014. Okay.
Surveying 8-year-olds. So we should expect to see this wave hit higher education in about another 5 years, maybe in 2024.
Yeah. So we'll expect to see more students at that time. And then we're in New Jersey. That's why we obviously include the New Jersey statistics. And New Jersey has some more rigorous standards. That's why reporting standards. That's why the numbers might be higher here. And also, just anecdotally, as someone who worked with students with autism, the services here are pretty good for students with autism. So I think sometimes, and I've heard people say this, they come from other states because they can get good services here. So that's one of the reasons that the
reporting in Jersey, the numbers might be higher.
A little bit higher here. So anyway, that's a long way of saying maybe in other places numbers might be higher. They might not just be getting as reported. So that could be an issue as well. Here's some more demographic information. 2018, 1 in 34. So then national is 1 in 59, which is quite a high number. Part of the reasons that the high prevalence could be because of the, as we mentioned before, the DSM, they changed the criteria. So Asperger's now included.
Right.
They were separate at one time, so that could be a reason for it.
Right. So the numbers aren't absolute and they change, but it does indicate a general growing trend of increase, and that's something we need to kind of be aware of.
And a healthy percentage, as you see there, will attend university. So that's 35% out of the 50,000 who turn 18 each year will go to university. So we will see these students in our libraries at our institutions. So we want to be prepared to help them as best we can. And it's going to be a small percentage of the population, so less than 2%. But still, if you had a big institution, a state institution, like I'm sure some of you are, Seton Hall is relatively small, mid-sized perhaps. But if you had a 50,000 university like Rutgers or University of Michigan, Penn State, those are huge universities. It's going to be big. It's going to be a small percentage, but still a lot of people at the end of the day if you're in a big institution. So part of it is, you know, it's part of the reason that there's an increase in the prevalence also is just that there's more awareness now. We see it more in the media, I think. We see it more out there. People talk about it more.
In popular culture
Yes,
as
in
well,
popular
we
culture,
see
yeah.
TV shows and movies where characters are written who have autism and ASD, and kind of see them kind of functioning and working in regular environments. So that's going a long way, I think, to kind of breaking down some stigmas. It's not all a 100% accurate, but I think it goes a long way to kind of raise awareness among general population that this is a condition that can affect just about anybody. And these people, they're all around us.
Absolutely, yep. And the good thing is, I think there's more advocacy now, so that's a good thing too. So people are advocating and getting more services for students for people with ASD. So that's a great thing.
The student earned this in the. It's a prize for Mike.
Okay, sorry about that.
Okay.
All right, all right. We'll go to the next one. Oh, so here's the lit review part we're going to talk about. So there's not a lot, especially on specifically for libraries and ASD. There's some out there, but not a lot of literature, and there's not much. Generally speaking, for institutions of higher education, there's a lot of the research is only case studies, and sometimes those case studies are really examining only one case, one person.
Right.
And then there's also a lot of universities, they may have programs for students with ASD, but they're not keeping any data. They're not any data on the outcomes for the students with ASD. So there's not a lot that's out there in terms of literature. It's starting as there's more awareness. So there is now starting to be more written on it, especially for higher education in general. But there's really not much out there in terms of the literature.
Right, and that's with academic libraries. Now, public libraries, it's a little bit different. There's much more programming and literature and services through public libraries promoting and supporting ASD, often having story times that are sensory friendly or open to students, open to kids with ASD. So public libraries have had a little bit more time and a little bit more experience in devoting resources and people to address ASD within the community. And oftentimes public libraries are a resource to connect people new to the community to specific support programs, local, municipal, even state. So they have, there's a little bit more in the literature about what happens in public libraries and what they've done, much less in academic libraries.
Yes, and the stuff in academic often focuses on the experience of the parents, the faculty, and not the students themselves. And that's something we learned that, it'd be really helpful to get the point of view of the students with ASD, not just the people working with them, but their point of view, what they think will be helpful. There's really a lack of that kind of research for students with ASD. And here's some of the things that we learned. As we said before, students with ASD have the academic skills to succeed at university, but the social skills are really a big barrier. They sometimes find that library stacked intimidating. So do I sometimes. But they see the library, it's a really positive thing. They see the library as a safe place. And that did come up, right? Sebastian would probably agree. Throughout the literature, what we read, they do see it as a kind of a safe haven. So they come here to the libraries because they feel it's a place where they can, be safe and get work done and not be, overstimulated, which is the case often for them socially.
Right, and I think we're a fairly large library. I think most students in general, are able to kind of literally find a space that works for them, whether it's out in a busy information commons or if it's upstairs in quiet floors, in a study carrel, in other quiet nooks and crannies. We have kids bring sleeping bags and beanbag chairs and camp out in the stacks when they're studying. So we don't discourage that. So I think with our library specifically, there's an openness and a recognition that we want students to feel comfortable and make the space really their own, so that they can, maximize their time and improve their study success.
Another thing I just point out that I think Sebastian and I found interesting is the concept of the student-ready approach versus a college-ready approach. So there's Adelphi University has an interesting program. It's called Bridges to Adelphi. So they really have this student-ready approach where the students, the college ready approach, the students have to be ready, have to have the skills when they get to college to succeed as students. Student ready approach says, no, we have to meet them where they are. And especially with students with ASD, this is the case. We have to meet them where they are. Try to support them, scaffolding, instruction, things like that.
Develop skills so they can become
skills.
successful.
Right, so they can be good students.
Yeah, kind of a move away from college ready, which might have been a little bit more exclusive, where only students who meet certain admission standards are accepted, where student ready really kind of flips it and puts the onus on the colleges to help the students become ready.
Right, and this is especially good for students with autism. But a lot of, I think we see some students who are not, are quote unquote normal, but they need certain scaffolding and help with skills too. So that's an interesting approach, and we saw that in the literature in a couple of places. And then another interesting thing that I was interested in, neurodiversity. I think so. The idea that there's no normal way for the brain to work. That it's all a spectrum, and that we all are different, and we all manifest ourselves different in the world, and that's we should be open to be more tolerant of different ways of thinking and different ways of being in the world. So that's the idea of neurodiversity.
Right. It's a real it's kind of a big challenge to think about. There's new terms, there's new kind of nomenclature coming out around this, and it'll take time to kind of filter down and become part of our everyday conversations. And
here's just the key legislation: IDEA versus ADA. So basically, at the students coming in, when this is important for us to remember, that when the students come into university, they're coming from the model where it was you have to ensure success. Where it's all about really creating an IEP, so an individual education plan for all the students, and they really have to, you have to really set up services for them, make sure they succeed. Whereas at the college level, ADA, it's more about civil rights, it's equal access, but you don't have to ensure success. So it's much different. And the onus is much more, the onus is on the student. They have to self-identify. So many students will not identify. So we may not know that they have ASD, and they may not even be on the record as having, with the institution as having ASD, but they may have it. But they have to identify at the pre-K to grade 12 level. The school is on them to find these students and then to accommodate them and to make sure they do succeed. So there's a different twist there, college versus grade school. Right.
I'm right now in the IDEA period, working with an IEP and working with a diagnosis from a pediatrician with my son. So flipping it, then looking ahead to when kids come to college, there's still, with disabilities in general, I think there's a lot of stigma, a lot of preconceived notions about what people are capable of, and it's quite understandable that students might not want to disclose that they have any type of learning disability or any type of disability at all, and really want to blend in, and that can often be at their detriment. So kids going to college, they're on the cusp of becoming adults and making their own decisions, and where parents previously had been very involved in the pre-K to 12 environment, in the college environment, it flips again, and the supports aren't there in the same way. So really, it's up to parents to kind of ensure, if they can, that they can help build those supports during the pre-college years, so that there's some structure in place to help. But we have a disability services office on campus, and I think most campuses do.
Yeah.
There's a tremendous amount of resources there, so it's a matter of kind of encouraging and making let students know that is an option on campus. And our office does a lot to promote their services, but it's up to the student to come forward and come to the DSS office to identify and have accommodations made that they need.
Yeah, I think a big difference also for students as they come into university will be, when they were in high school, they're gonna have a very, very structured environment based on their IEP. So it's gonna be, they'll be getting services based on the IEP. It'll be very structured. Their parents will be involved. Once they get to the university level, it's gonna be much more, the onus will be on them, and it's gonna be a lot less structure, which will be a big challenge, could be a challenge for some students with autism. So it's important to remember that when they come, they are going from a very structured environment into a much less structured environment, where they really have to rely on their own being able to identify and then, to kind of advocate for support. So it's a much different situation than it is in high school, where they're getting support because the school has to give it to them. At this level, they have to really advocate for it. So it becomes a different dynamic for them, which is important to remember, I think. And here's just some of the impacts on libraries. Obviously, it's going to have a big effect because
right. Yeah, if we look through, so students have a heightened risk for academic failure, ASD students. Current services maybe might not be adequate enough to help ASD college students succeed. Again, because the numbers are small but rising. There just might not be the numbers coming through enrollment that are identified and that DSS, Disability Services, needs to address. Again, it doesn't often manifest itself in observable or physical ways. So if we're expecting to see somebody behave a certain way outwardly that's visible, that may not always be the case or be a clue. Many students choose not to disclose an ASD condition. And just certainly I can, speaking on from our institution, just a lack of understanding about it and awareness among librarians and staff, but also a desire to learn more about it as well, I think is very positive. So we know that there's going to be, about 50,000 teenagers with ASD turn 18 every year. About 35% attend college. So it's something that we just kind of have to keep in mind and kind of have a conversation happening within our own institutions and our own libraries.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, time for poll question 2.
Poll question number 2.
Let's see if we can do it right with this time. Okay, boom. Okay, poll question 2, and then we're going to go here. Okay, I'll launch the poll. All right, so this one is, does your library provide services for students with autism spectrum disorder, ASD? So it'll be interesting to compare this to the numbers for just disabilities in general. So we'll give you a few minutes to, not a few minutes, we'll give you a minute or two to fill this out. And then we'll go back to our presentation. So yeah, it looks like much lower numbers here as compared.
Right.
Yeah, so far it's 17%, only 3 all told. Feels like a sporting event here. Tabulating just as it comes in, like Super Tuesday. So we're not a vote counting today. This is just kind of in that theme. This is interesting. Yeah. It's only 4. Yeah, I would have thought that. Yeah, that's. Yeah. I'm glad. It's nice to see that there's a few out there, actually. All right. I think, does that sound like about everybody? Yeah, that's probably about everyone. Should we?
Sure. Yeah. Let's close the poll.
We'll start the poll and we'll go to the next question. Oh, let me just close it. And then we'll go to the next one. Oh.
Where's the X?
I got the X, I think I got the X, folks, but let me just, last time I escaped and went back in. If you bear with me for a second, we'll just escape and go back in.
While you're doing that, Gerry, maybe we can share with folks in our library for the past year, maybe 2, we've had a graduate student kind of make himself known in the library, somebody who regularly came to the reference desk seeking help from a particular librarian. Anyway, this graduate student, while he never identified himself as having any particular disability, there clearly was something there in terms of just his sort of his affect and sort of the very single narrow focus in terms of asking questions when he came to the reference desk. So it was interesting to kind of watch this student who initially came in the library. He's physically kind of quite imposing, quite a big figure who you can't miss when he's in the library. And so as he got comfortable coming to the reference desk, we've seen over the past more than a year now, a change where he would come to the desk and really ask for our advice and our help and how to do assignments and what we thought he should be doing, to now being much more comfortable having conversations. He used to insist and ask for only one specific librarian. He would seek this librarian out. He would come to the desk and ask for the librarian. And if I or Gerry were there, we would say, no, thanks, I need this certain librarian. So, and that's changed over time. And I think just watching him become much more comfortable in the library, he's kind of let his guard down, but he's become much more fluid in how he interacts with people, that he's become less rigid and he's become much more, I think, at ease with the environment, such to the point that now he wants to know how he can go to library school and get a library job in our library. Our library is where he wants to be. So we've talked about this among ourselves, how we've really kind of seen this transformation. And it wasn't anything that I think we directly did. I think it speaks to kind of the environment. And I think the kind of service and look we are trying to present to people, that we're approachable and helpful. So so this student who's finishing up his program wants to now become a librarian from a graduate degree in, Gerry, correct me, social
work, yes, social work,
yes.
Yeah. It's actually been a really nice thing to see, and he's become much more self-directed, which is great. In terms of his own research and in seeking help out, and more comfortable with other people. So his social skills have really, I think, if have improved. He's become more comfortable with a lot of different people in the library, which is really nice to see.
Yeah, and even sitting with students. So he would come into the library and just be very solitary, sit at a desk, be within eyesight of the reference desk, watch us like a hawk, not really talk to anybody. But now, when I see him in the library, he'll sit with other students who may be his classmates, but he'll just sit and be comfortable and just be much more at ease. And it's very kind of heartwarming to kind of see that happen.
Yeah, absolutely, no doubt about it. Yeah, that's good. So yeah, just some other recommendations we have in terms of, I guess, research here. So as we said before, more research that talks about the attitudes of people with ASD themselves, instead of just asking faculty and parents and family, more the perceptions of the people themselves who have ASD. So that's one thing. That's where research could go in that direction. And then also guided by the social model of disability, which essentially says that impairment is one thing, but the disability comes from the fact that society has certain ideas and certain structures, political structures or even social structures that make it very difficult for certain people with certain impairments like ASD to kind of succeed. So it's more society's creating the disability, not so much the person. It's not inherent in them.
Yeah, it puts the onus on society. It's the society that disables impaired people. So there's some interesting writings out there about that, and that's something we came across in the research we hadn't really heard of before. Just kind of different perspectives and different ways of getting out of sort of narrow, regimented thinking about this topic, to kind of think about it in a different way. So social model disability is sort of a civil rights approach to disability. So they make a distinction between impairments, which are the individual problems which might prevent people from doing something, and disability, which is the additional disadvantage bestowed by society, which treats these impairments as abnormal, and so excluding people from full participation. And that's really the ultimate goal, I think, for any disability. We want everyone to be sort of a full participant in society to the degree that they can. And if we can play a small role, the little bit that we've helped with this graduate student sort of become a little bit more independent and comfortable and on his own, then I think that's something we need to keep in the forefront of all our efforts as we interact with students across the board.
So some more recommendations in terms of dealing with students with ASD. So there's no single approach, and then I think awareness is a really important thing. So the idea about library-sponsored events and workshops to help just educate the campus community, because when people are educated about this, they're more accepting, and there's research that indicates that when their peers understand what ASD is, students with ASD do better socially. So it's important for other people to be sympathetic, to understand what they're going through, and if they have that awareness, they're much more likely to accept them. So that's kind of libraries can only play a certain role. We can't do everything, obviously, but this is an area where we could be of some help, creating awareness on campus, and we've done some of that here already, but creating awareness among the other students about what it is and how they can really, and not only that, but how the students with the students who don't have ASD, how they can interact and how they can help students with ASD. So help them really socialize with those students as well. So that's something we can do, I think.
Yeah, and again, the library kind of creating almost like a melting pot, but an environment where social engagement can happen among different types of students, different ages, different backgrounds. We see that a lot now, especially as somewhat related, but as students on campus begin kind of talking about diversity. That's a conversation that's happening on our campus, and it's probably happening on yours, happening nationwide. Diversity among student body versus diversity among faculty and administrators, and how disproportionate that can be in terms of the faculty administrator side not really reflecting diversity that's found broadly in the student body. So it's part of this whole conversation that's happening on campus right now. And we are just thinking here in our own library about how we encourage outreach with an aim to foster diversity as much as we can, starting even in our in-house with kinds of people we hire, how we hire students. It's something that is very much on all our minds.
And I think we've done some outreach too in terms of to support students with ASD. We reached out to campus disability services and the counseling services, and we had them come to the library and do a workshop for all the library staff and faculty last March. So I think that was helpful to educate our own staff here and faculty at the library. We've also reached out to the education faculty. We've spoken to them. A couple of the faculty are experts in ASD. They've written books on the topic, and we've reached out to them to sort of educate ourselves. Sebastian and I met with them and educate ourselves on the topic. And then we also collaborated with one of the classes, one of the faculty members was teaching a class on autism and other disabilities. So we created a research guide for that course and collaborated with them to kind of get more awareness out there about ASD. So that we're trying to reach out and do the little bit we can to help on campus here with awareness.
Yeah, and that may be something for folks who are listening to look at your own campus, seeing what resources are there. So we have a master's program in behavioral. It's
Applied, ABA.
Applied
behavioral analysis.
Behavioral analysis. And it turns out, as we talked to a couple of the faculty who run the program, they were very open to our questions, but also we recognized that they were experts themselves in their field. They've written book chapters and published extensively on ABA therapy, which is one of the therapies that's proven to show success as an early intervention with ASD kids. So that was very interesting for us to literally get out of the library, go across campus to another department, sit down in the faculty's offices and have very interesting, frank discussions and hear their perspective. So you may have something similar in your own campus. It's definitely worth looking at. And our counseling service as well. The presentation that was done in our library was the director of disability services and one of the counseling services psychologists who also brought a very balance of sort of clinical perspective on students to autism, and particularly the difference between how it's diagnosed and manifested between male and female, for example. Yeah. And then campus disability services also providing sort of the practical classroom accommodations that some professors do. So kind of sharing all that, having them come and giving us an opportunity to ask questions. We found it very positive and kind of empowering. And for folks, again, look around, reach out look at your campus, look at what existing services are there and make those connections, and invite people in and just have a conversation.
Okay, yeah, some more tangible things in terms of recommendations. So signage that's transparent, we'll give you some examples that we have here. Fluorescent lighting can be very, can be overbearing or over difficult. Overstimulating is the word, yeah. So if possible, and this is obviously difficult in big buildings, but if possible, non-fluorescent lighting, or maybe in a section that has that kind of lighting that's softer, that might be just an area that might be helpful for students with ASD. Safe spaces, obviously, quiet rooms help sometimes. Also, this is an interesting one that we came across in literature, tutoring spaces. So sometimes students with autism have, they're very interested, really interested about something very specific. They have a real interest in those areas. So maybe, and if that's an academic discipline, they can maybe tutor students in that area. And that's also a way to integrate them socially. So they meet the students and they tutor them in that area of interest. And then they kind of make connections and can feel more socially integrated into the university. So maybe creating those places where students can have these kind of interactions might be a possibility to help students with ASD. Universal design is obviously a really good thing, in terms of, not only teaching, but, in the way the building's set up. But that's a really excellent way to kind of help students with ASD. And then personal librarian programs, which we talked about the Bridges at Delphi program before. They have a personal librarian. They're an example of the institution that has that. This might not be for every institution, because if there's a program that's set up institution-wide for students with ASD, then it's kind of easy to latch in or hook that in with the personal library program in the library. But if you have to go out and find students with ASD, it's really hard because they don't identify all the time. They may not want to be stigmatized. But if there's an existing program like Delphi has, Rutgers, I believe, has in here in New Jersey, has a program like that. So if you're on a campus where there are these kind of existing programs for students with ASD, then this might be a good outreach opportunity to meet and then try to set up a program where you can help them in research very specifically with the personal librarian program. I don't think not going to be ideal for every situation.
Right, yeah, so just building on sort of the research that we looked at, so students with ASD believe that a personalized approach is an effective way to address their needs. And they prefer individual coaching to training programs. So, librarians, it kind of fits in with what we do. Certainly, in a lot of academic libraries, the librarians do individual research consultations. That's an existing service that we could promote, certainly through disability services and counseling as well, as a way to kind of connect with ASD students, to give them that individualized personal approach. It can be time consuming. I won't lie that it can require a little bit more energy in interacting with someone on the spectrum, but it can also be equally rewarding. And with universal design, it's generally the thinking is to make all products and environments usable by a full range of individuals. So regardless of how able-bodied someone is, universal design attempts to kind of create an environment that really works for everyone. There's lots of great research out there. We can provide a bibliography for sources later if folks want. I mentioned we have an information commons model in our library, but chat reference is something that we offer and many libraries do. That is also another service that can be promoted. It's a way for people to control their interaction. If you don't want to speak to someone in person or don't really want to interact with someone face-to-face, chat reference is a great, if you're already offering that, that's already a tool that could be of benefit to ASD students in terms of helping them navigate and manage communicating one-on-one with someone.
Alrighty.
And we do offer, I was going to say, so our information commons is very noisy, but we do offer within the commons a quiet study room that is well marked. Yep. And the 3rd and 4th floors of our library are quiet floors. So students generally find them and seek them out, and then they will let us know when there are noise infractions, often through chat, believe it or not. Many of our chats are students saying, I'm up on the 3rd floor at a table, and there's another noisy table of nursing students in there. Can you send someone up here and tell them to be quiet? And we do that because we take it seriously, the designation of quiet areas, because we're trying to manage all these different demands on this space where it is a social space. It's a fun, noisy space. Sometimes it's a creative space, but it's also a place for quiet study and reflection and contemplation and individual work. So we have within our library tried to designate areas that can address those different types of uses and needs.
Very good. Yeah, that's excellent. And then, so we just some stuff we did already here at Seton Hall, research guides on ASD, which is incorporated into the Blackboard shell, so that for a class on autism, So that's been helpful, hopefully. We've done a couple library displays the last 2 years in April, Autism Awareness Month, to kind of increase awareness around campus. We've also, I've incorporated, I'm sure Sebastian has as well, some more goal-based hands-on exercises in instruction. And this is a good way this is like universal design. This will help everyone, but it will help, it will help students with autism, but it will also help all your other students. So for example, when I'm doing, an exercise for, let's say, keyword or, keyword concepts, or, creating keywords, doing searching, showing them a mind map, so really visualize it concretely. And then before we do that, then brainstorming as a group about, let's say, something like racism, brainstorming synonyms. So then when we do a keyword search, they can have more than one keyword and search terms. And then having them, after we do after visually showing the mind map, which gives all the different connected concepts, then brainstorming different keywords, then having them do an actual mind map of their own. So we've scaffolded it. It's been very concrete. And then they do the hands-on exercises that can really apply what they've learned. So active learning is really important, I think, not only for students with ASD, but students in general. It helps them. I've noticed that that's really improved. I feel like my instruction's been better for everybody, but I think it's helped students with autism as well.
And also I think with pacing as well, kind of realizing we don't need to be in such a rush as we do instruction classes, really thinking in advance how we're going to plan it, building in time for students to do these exercises, but not feel rushed. Obviously have goals and have learning outcomes in our instruction, but just try to realize that we want, everyone in the class to be able to participate to the best of their ability, but also give them the liberty, the space and time to work with the concepts that we're presenting.
Absolutely, yeah. A couple other things. There's some grants available out there from autism.org. Each year they award $5,000. So that's just an idea. If you had some ideas for a program, you could get a grant and try to institute those. That's for public and higher education. So those would be opportunities for you if you had some ideas in terms of what you might want to do. In terms of programming, you get a grant and then institute that program. Here's some examples of what we've done here in terms of signage that's more transparent.
Yeah, literally, we've gone to, we're moving to a model of, I want to say, decal letters applied to surfaces versus traditional printed physical signs. So we're trying to go through our library and where that makes sense to do that. It's easy to apply. It's a little bit easier to update. It makes a nice consistent look, and we put them sort of at eye level where they're kind of visually very easy to see. Signage and wayfinding is just a huge, on its own, apart from this, is a huge issue that we're all grappling with as libraries. But it's small steps like this are doable, achievable, and can make a big impact in terms of making the space less intimidating and making it make more sense.
Yeah, and I think this has really been an improvement on our end here. A couple more. Here's we did this, the window for autism awareness. That was last April.
Right. We happen, we're also looking at, with the design of our library, there are external facing display windows like this on 2 different floors. So there's one right outside the entrance of the library here. So we will probably do something similar for this again. Window displays, I requested, I think from Autism Speaks, I requested to be an ambassador, and they sent all the material that you see in the window and balloons and buttons and lapel pins, just sent it all just after requesting it. So we will be doing this again to some degree. And then up in the top right, you can see we've also, it's difficult to get a picture of all this to make it look sensible, but we also pulled books from our collection and put them on little book racks so people could see them. So, just thinking of your own collection and the kinds of resources you could add. I mean, Gerry and I think we looked at what we had for books on autism, and our own holdings were kind of thin and outdated. So with just a little bit of searching and just not spending a whole lot of money, we were able to get more current scholarly and highly recommended material in our collection that we can kind of promote where we want to.
And there's the research guide that we mentioned. So that's for autism awareness. And yeah, but we update that as much as we can with new, books if they come in, and things. If there are new resources out there, we highlight those on this particular guide. And I think, just a couple more. We have a couple more. Oh, so in terms of communication, these are important.
Yeah, good recommendations we've come across that are useful for just human communication in general,
Right,
regardless of who you're speaking with, but be direct, use concrete, literal language. I know students with ASD can't sort of have a difficulty sort of processing expressions like my nephew also has autism, and as my sister mentioned, you can't say to him, he's probably 12, you can't say keep an eye out for the Amazon delivery guy, because he will go he doesn't understand what that means, or keep an ear out for the delivery man who's coming in. That kind of abstract expression he can't process it. It has to be very literal and clear. Giving instructions in a clear logical order, particularly when it comes to instruction, library instruction. Avoid nonverbal cues, slang, and sarcasm. Yes, you're going to get sort of no reaction to that at all often. And Gerry mentioned, be aware of sensory input from the environment. Fluorescent lighting is it's tough. It's hard, and I know we often try to dim the lights when we do instruction in one of our spaces. Yeah. That's not always an option. But I think there's also growing awareness on campus that harsh fluorescent lighting is just not productive to any kind of the work we do. So sometimes a room might have, like the one we're in, have blinds. We can control natural light. Yeah. And just coming out of winter, sometimes it's dark, and then the harsh lighting seems even more harsh. So that's another challenge that we're facing in every building on campus, and probably your campus too. Yeah. And then patience and encouragement goes a long way when helping students with ASD, when helping any student. But I think, again, with the student that we mentioned, the graduate student, it's a credit to the librarians that they really displayed a lot of patience, worked with this student, encouraged him a lot. Yes, you can do it. You can do it yourself. Really let him know that he was smart enough to manage the work, and he was, but he just needed that little bit of encouragement from, I want to say, a stranger, someone outside his, probably his normal circle. I think that helped a long way with his students. So that is something that is just easy to do, just that encouragement with any student. You can do this, you can get through this, you can do this assignment, we'll go through it step by step. So, but that takes time, and that's not always in everybody's wheelhouse to do, but that's something that I think we can think about.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. The patience and the kindness are really important with anybody, but especially with students with ASD. All right, we have one more discussion question. All right, I guess if you could answer these questions, if
wait a second, I had Gerry. This is number one. Is that the first one?
No, this is the last one. I'm sorry. I just put number one. That's my bad. I apologize. Not a great polling person. They never. Yeah, they're never going to ask me to poll for it or anything like that. But so the question is, what services, if any, does your library provide for students with ASD? So if you're one of the few people, I think there was 4 or 5 libraries that said they do have services. Just if you could write it, type in the chat what those services are. That'd be really helpful for us, because we're trying to. Sebastian and I are actually hoping to write another paper. We've written a paper on autism, and another one, autism in academic libraries, and we're hoping to write one where we're going to survey librarians across the country and find out what services are out there in academic libraries for students with ASD. So this is kind of just something that we're interested in thinking about, and I'd like to know about. And if you're providing any services, it'd be great if you could let us know what they are, because we're interested to know. It's and I'm going to escape if you don't mind. Then maybe I can.
So there's time here at the end, so we want
Any questions?
Open it up for any questions. There's the chat window. Aaron, if you want to relay any to us, we'd be happy to respond. And
bear with me, I'm not the most technical person, so we're going to have to limp through this. We'll see. But let me just, those are my 2 sons. Sorry, folks.
Let's put our last slide up so people have.
Okay, last slide. Okay. I'll put the last slide up. Sorry, folks. And there's our contact information. I can't, I can't see the chat box, but anyway, maybe you can see it.
Yeah, I just.
You have the chat box. Oh, awesome. Sebastian has it. Awesome. And I'll just make this big.
Hey guys.
Yes.
Got a question to me
Oh, sure.
personally. I'm assuming she wants me to ask you guys, do you have any assessment data showing how your ASD patrons feel about the services that you provide?
We don't, but that's something we want to do
Yeah, that's
in
what we
this
want to do,
coming
yeah.
year,
Yeah,
sort
that's
of
one of our goals,
a satisfaction survey.
Yeah.
You know, right now we're, I think one of the big initiatives on campus, we have a new president and a new provost, and things like services to graduate students is going to be an area of emphasis.
Yeah.
And so we're aiming to do some student satisfaction stuff in that regard, but nothing specifically with ASD, but it's maybe there will be an opportunity in the survey design to kind of see if we can
Work that in.
To some degree.
But that's something we would like to do.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah. If not, yeah, in the near future, very near future. That's something we'd definitely like to explore. Unfortunately, I haven't had the opportunity yet.
Is humor best avoided when communicating with ASD students? Yeah, I would say yes, and unless you sort of have regular contact and it that kind of develops. I tend to kind of joke a lot, but I think when I'm out at the reference desk, I tend to really tone things down if I'm having one-on-one, and really try to first kind of address the information need. Be friendly and approachable, but try to address information need first and then kind of see how it goes.
Yeah, I would agree with that, definitely.
Yeah, I'm not one to avoid humor. I would just say maybe just cautiously first, you know.
Yeah.
Even if someone isn't smiling, if they're in front of you and they're getting help, it's, again, I can think of this graduate student. He's not one who visibly on his face shows a lot of different expressions, but you can tell by other means that he's enjoying kind of getting something out of the interaction.
Yeah. You look at the chat. Good. Yeah, that's good.
On my campus, I've observed that most ASD students choose engineering and other science majors. Is this true more broadly across the country? Wow, I don't know. That's
a good question.
We've not looked. We haven't come across sort of a breakdown by majors of where they go, but that does kind of bear. That would sort of make sense because it's certainly there's structure in kind of engineering and science majors that I think would appeal to students learning, where they're the variables and the rules and the formulas are all there and there's an answer. And I'm kind of generalizing, sorry. Our library worked with our academic advising office to coordinate with the campus student group for ASD students. Yes. Is there a student group on campus already for ASD students? On ours, not so much. And in some of our conversations, somebody mentioned something of, you know, maybe someday, the same way that deafness is sort of an accepted, we'll call it disability, but that students are, there's definitely like a deaf culture, you know, that promotes deafness and inclusivity and kind of is reducing barriers and stigma. Will there be something like that for ASD students? Hopefully, it would be great if that happened. So you mentioned the students identified items that are used for them, including weighted blanket, colored pencils, coloring books, fidget spinners, noise canceling headphones. Those are great. We do have pencils and coloring books. In fact, we just set up a coloring book table recently in the library. So not specifically for ASD, but the fidget spinners, that's interesting, and noise canceling headphones. Those are great suggestions. Again, kind of easy,
those are
kind of easy approaches to take that you could then promote more broadly as well. Okay, somebody said students tend to be in IT programs. Maybe we should move in science librarians into trainings like these. They're more likely to encounter it. Thanks for informative. Yes, in fact, it was the science librarian who was helping the graduate student, just out of coincidence. But I think her scientific brain responded well with this graduate student.
Yeah.
Our library also uses a feature in ILS that allows patrons to request items for, okay. Yes, ours as well. So your catalog may allow, requesting items. If students don't want to come in person, or if students don't want to come in person and ask for help in finding something, we allow for requesting any item, any book we have on the shelf, and of course, interlibrary loan is all mediated through software interface on our website, so it doesn't require interacting with people. Thank you, everybody, for your suggestions. And then Aaron has an evaluation form to fill out there in the chat box. I want to make sure I didn't miss anybody.
And thank you so much for your time and attention. Appreciate it. And as the Beatles would say, you're a lovely audience. We'd like to take you home with us. But
thank you, everybody.
Yeah, keep your comments coming, but I'd like to thank everybody for joining us today. And Gerry and Sebastian, thank you for presenting for us. That was
Thank you.
lots of great
ideas.
information. Aaron did post the link to the survey in the chat box. We would appreciate it if you take a few moments to complete that and let us know your thoughts about the presentation today and about our programming in general.
Please feel free to reach out to Gerry or
Yes.
myself, send an email. We'd be more than happy to hear from you.
Absolutely,
As a reminder, the recording for this presentation will be available on the Pennsylvania Library Association website for members. If you're not a Pennsylvania Library Association member and you're interested in becoming a member, feel free to contact any member of the Connect and Communicate group or CRD, and we will get in touch with the membership committee for you. We also invite you to contact us about suggestions for future discussions and presentations. And definitely, if you want to present, let us know. Let's see if there's any other questions coming in. I don't see anything.
Get the one about community, where did it go? Students transferring from community colleges before transferring to a four-year institution.
Oh, actually, no, I don't think that went to
Oh, I see that one, right. We didn't come across anything.
There was there's a program in New Jersey. Was it New Jersey? It's the College of New Jersey. Remember we reached out, there was a program that, they start for 2 years and then they do go on to a four-year college.
Sorry, yes, so we do have that here. So I forgot about this one.
Not at Seton Hall directly, but in New Jersey, there's a program like that.
Yes.
So they sort of, they give them the basics or whatever, and then they get them ready for college, essentially, get them, as we said before, college ready, and then they move up to the College of New Jersey. So there's some of those programs around. That we found one in New Jersey, but there's not. Didn't find that many, but there's one that we did come across.
Right, and again, more and more we may see programs like this presented at conferences, national, regional, and local. So keep your ears out and open, and as this gets discussed more in librarianship, sessions like this, I think hopefully will be more common, where people can share ideas and ask questions and share resources. Thank you, Aaron, for putting this together and organizing it. We really appreciate it. You did a lot of work on this. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you guys for this presentation. It was very informative and useful.
Very good. Thank you for the invitation. We appreciate that. It was nice to be invited.
Yeah. I would just like to thank Sarah for doing our closed captioning today and Diane for moderating. And I'm going to stop recording now, if that's okay with everybody.
Sure. That's fine. No problem.